This is Lessons in the Challenges of Leadership, the series that enables managers to achieve the remarkable. Podcast, video, short reads, brought to you by Being Learning. Conceived, developed and presented by Siebert Neathling.
When talking about strategy, I'm interested in how any leader, any diligent manager, any ambitious employee, any human being, in fact, can be strategic about what is important to them. We can be strategic in a small business venture and in a global merger, in turning around a troubled team or setting up a large-scale public sector venture, in dealing with change, in managing a career, and in managing a teenager. A sporting team can be strategic about approaching a strong opponent. You would have learned about Julius Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon, or you would have seen a movie where someone strategically cheats others out of an inheritance. Or you might watch property programs where renovators make millions strategically acquiring and changing real estate to attract high-value buyers. Strategy is all around us. In my lifetime, I've witnessed the strategic genius of Steve Jobs at Apple. I've seen the taxi industry and the B&B accommodation industry utterly disrupted. I've seen the repurposing of the Battersea Power Station in London and the reinvention of the Australian Taxation Office. All examples of strategy in action. But it's not just about famous organizations. I'm sure that sometime in your career, somewhere, someone said, we need to be more strategic. Perhaps you've been asked to give a strategic response to a problem. You might even have developed formal strategies yourself. So when I ask people what it means to be strategic, the answers usually include phrases like big picture, long-term planning, not being reactive, thinking ahead, identifying risks, identifying opportunities, and integrating diverse elements. Strategy is often contrasted with being tactical or operational, as in a tactical defeat here will serve our strategy to give the enemy a false sense of confidence or divert its attention from the strategic goal. All of these ideas are relevant, of course. But it's a bit like knowing how to live a healthy life. We all know that good eating, exercise, solid sleep, and drinking lots of water are the key ingredients. But many of us don't do these things beyond the first few weeks of the New Year's resolution. So even if we know what it means to be strategic, many fail to be strategic, often because they say they don't have enough time. So I'm going to distill it down to a simple but thorough approach that dramatically increases the likelihood of success. There are 6 distinct elements that must be present to have a successful strategy. It helps to know what you are aspiring to become. People often use words like vision or mission or even purpose. Do you want to reduce infant mortality in a poor region, or become the most successful company in your sector, or open your own florist shop, or be promoted within a year? Aspiration can be vague, but it does help to put it in words as clearly and as simply as possible. And that's a good start. But you also need to think clearly and realistically about what the future holds in store for you. This is anticipation. What factors will impact negatively on you achieving your aspiration? What factors might support you? Some years ago, I helped a forestry company to develop a strategic plan. It was a 5-year plan, and we carefully analyzed what the future demand was likely to be based on housing demand from population growth. We also analyzed increasing imports from overseas and cheap alternatives to timber. On the positive side was the sustainability trend and the desire to work more with natural materials. But interestingly, one of their greatest anticipated challenges was that the number of students studying silviculture had been declining, and they had an aging workforce. So they anticipated skills shortages. Developing and importing new talent became a key element of their strategy. Good strategy is also based on evaluation of current abilities and performance. If your business is thriving, why is that? What qualities are helping you to succeed? And if you have had a difficult time, What is it that prevented you from thriving? Evaluation is about yourself, not the environment. Every organization will have strengths that could be exploited and weaknesses that should be improved. And this is not separate from strategy. Your weaknesses might limit your ability to execute the strategy you develop, and your strengths should absolutely be leveraged. You might find that your strengths include quality delivery and a supportive client base, and that your weaknesses are systems, communication, aging equipment. These should all form part of a strategic approach to your business. So we have now looked at aspiration, anticipation, and evaluation. They are the first elements of strategy because they shape the elements that follow. Now, I don't mind what sequence you use with these three, where a strategy often and perhaps ideally starts with a purpose or a vision. Much good strategy originates in anticipation of change or evaluation of current strengths and weaknesses. I've had clients ask me to help them with strategy because they are anxious about potential changes in their business environment. Anticipation. Others have come to me because they have performed poorly and know they have to improve. Evaluation. And once, a client came to me and said, I want to own a Learjet by the time I'm 40. Aspiration. So now we can start developing our proposition. Given what we anticipate will support and hinder us, and what our strengths and weaknesses are, how do we propose to achieve our aspiration? What is our plan? Now, plans can be detailed or short, highly complex or simple, but you must have a plan and you must be able to articulate it clearly. I once met then British Deputy Prime Minister Michael Heseltine and was told an anecdote about him by one of his staff. When at Oxford, he reportedly sketched his future career on the back of an envelope. It was a confident, step-by-step plan to build wealth, become a member of Parliament, and rise through the party ranks and specific portfolios until he would become Prime Minister. And his career path pretty much followed the plan, except for the near miss of the final goal. He failed in his challenge to the leadership of Margaret Thatcher. And informal as that plan was, it was still a planned course of action. I have seen detailed and expensive plans that ended up in bottom drawers and have heard clear plans, never written down, that were perfectly executed. Planning is not the end of the strategic process. It is just one element of it. I'm very fond of the plan on a page approach, often a sketch or a diagram with the key elements of the strategy highlighted, as long as it is used and the people responsible for it are able to fill out the details needed to implement it. And that brings me to commissioning. Many years ago, I worked in a strategy role for a leading brewing company. And when I visited one of the breweries, I saw a shining new Simonazzi bottle washing machine being installed on a production line. A week later, the machine was complete, but it was not yet operating. I asked what the problem was. Nothing, I was told. We're still commissioning it. And that involved running it with cold water for a short time, checking the seals and relubricating, then running it for a longer period, followed by laser alignment of the feeder system and all conveyors, then running at 50% capacity with hot water, etc. Only after extensive checking, testing, and recalibrating was it commissioned. And it struck me at the time that the engineers were far more thorough than we were about strategy. Typically, management develops strategy without making sure it is right, clear, understood, resourced, and supported. So I call this process commissioning the strategy. It is the alignment of effort and resources to ensure everyone understands and supports the strategy and is able to implement it. And then finally, there is implementation. Strategy is useless if it's a glossy document on a shelf or in a drawer. It has to be implemented with discipline and vigor, be integrated in the usual planning and operating processes of the organization, be checked, reviewed, and updated if necessary. It should inform all significant decisions in the organization. Now, these 6 elements are all important. It is absolutely essential that every single element is part of the strategy process. And in the next module, I will share a case study that will explain why.